All right, so let's move to today's lesson. What I want to talk to you about is a tool on chess.com called Drills, formerly Computer Workout. When I worked on this tool, when I revamped it and designed a sort of curriculum behind it, it was called Computer Workout at the time. And I think it's a really, really great learning tool, particularly for endgames. The drills are designed really to train and improve your endgame play through practice and repetition of some useful and key practical endgames. And as you can see here for this 2-rook mate, I put in, it's designed to have hints, or sort of like one sort of helpful comment when you first get to the position. But for some time now, I've had the idea of going through and working through some of the drills and sort of, for the easier ones at the beginning, maybe providing more useful commentary than just the hints. And then very quickly, we'll get into drills that are very difficult for me. And so it'll be me struggling to solve them. And it'll be the whole, like, me trying to figure it out, making mistakes and learning it myself. That will hopefully provide an extra guidance to people who want to work on these. I highly recommend working through these things. They're super useful. Hi, Sarah, if you're saying hi to me. So we're going to start off today with some of the easy ones, and we're slowly going to work through a whole bunch of these. And these are, so on the drills thing, first of all, you can play all of these endgames out against a computer opponent, but these are also things that you could practice against another player. If you want to practice it with, a friend or a training partner, they're great for doing that. And even if you get good at one, another level you can do is you can practice like doing them faster and faster. Like you could practice, like, say we know how to do this 2-rook mate here. You could practice trying to do it in 1 minute, right? Or you could practice trying to do it in like 2 minutes or something like that. Just make yourself be able to do it super fast. Or if you're really good and the 2-rook mate is really easy, you can try doing it in like 20 seconds or something, right? If you're training to be a bullet fiend. So, what's going to make this even better, since I'm recording this live, is that you guys can ask questions as we go. So if there's an end game that you have any questions about, then ask. And, I am starting here with 2 rooks against king, and then I think the next one is queen against king. So some of you may be like, yawn, boring, get it over with. And other people will be like, I'm not sure how to, there might be someone who's like, I'm not sure how to do it, but I don't want to ask a question because everyone's going to like, make fun of me for being the noob. Don't worry about being the noob. Everybody was the noob at some point. So, just ask any questions you have. It'll make it better because I'll be able to address your learning process. So let's just get started here with the very first one, 2 rooks against a king. First of all, for all of these, you want to kind of imagine what a checkmate might look like. And with 2 rooks against a king, well, with most basic checkmates, the checkmate's going to involve the opponent's king being on the side of the board, often in a corner. So in this case, we're going to want a king on a side and 1 rook cutting off 1 row and the other rook cutting off the row that he's on and giving the checkmate. The easiest way to do this is to have your rooks sort of alternate taking control of ranks. So this rook takes this rank, and then this rook's going to take the 3rd rank. And then once he's got that, this one's going to try and take the 4th rank. And then once he's got that, the other one's going to try and take the 5th rank. So you're going to try and just take the ranks one at a time. You don't even need your king for this. You can just slowly take away a rank that restricts the opponent's king, and then check it on the next rank, pushing it back. And all you have to do is adjust your rooks to be far enough away from the king when he approaches you. So, for example, in this starting position, I can immediately cut the king off along this rank here. right? Taking away this part of the board. Now the king moves back, and the next rank I want to take away is this one. So I'll bring the next rook into position. Now, the next thing we would like to do, now that we've got this rank covered, is take away the next rank. And the obvious way to do that would be to play rook to g6. I hope this thing's going to let me make a take back. Let's just find out. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to play rook g6 to take that rank away. But as you can see, the king can capture the rook if I go there. And the little drill computer that you're playing against also sometimes will tell you when you've made a mistake or not. So in this case, it told me inaccuracy. Rook g6 check was not my best move. All right. So let's see if I can take it back and play something else. I can. Great. Now it told me that was an excellent move. The best move possible. So I wanted to get to this rank here, but I didn't want to go where I would be just captured by the king, right? So I went the furthest distance away from him, and now I will come here. Take away this row. Now I want to take away this row. So you just ask yourself, is rook b7 safe or not? Can the king capture you? He cannot. So we play rook b7 check. He comes here. And now he's attacking the rook. So again, you've got this row covered, but rook a8 check is again going to be a big mistake because the king can take that rook. He got too close to it, okay? The computer tells me excellent move, but it wasn't the best. All right. So I would like to play rook here, but I can't do it when the king can take my rook. Now, for anyone who wants to get annoying, I do know that the fastest checkmate here is not the move I'm about to play, but I'm going to show the simplest approach for anybody who's learning how to do this. We're going to move our rook far away from the king that was trying to take us. Now we want to go rook to a8. Is it time to play rook to a8? If you're really learning this endgame right now, every time I ask a question, do a quick pause and see if you can answer that question for yourself and then go on. So, do we want to play rook to a8 checkmate? No, the king can take it. It's too close to the king. So let's back up and let's put our rook further away from this king. The further away you go, the better. Rooks always like to be as far away from kings as possible, and kings always like to be as close to rooks as possible when they're fighting each other in the endgame. That's just how it is. So now we can finally give checkmate. Yes. This is not the Norm Hunter show. No. Learning this this two rook checkmate is something that is really for new players more than people becoming IMs and GMs. This is just me teaching some endgames today. So that is the two rook endgame. If you've got a question about it, ask it soon because I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, so if I were at the drills homepage, what I was doing was I'm starting with the checkmates. You're going to go checkmates, then you're going to go endgame fundamentals, then you're going to do endgame practice. Those are the three that you really want to do to get good at endgames. That's the three to start with, okay? So we're going to go to checkmate. We just did the two rook mate. Now you're going to learn the queen mate. All right, again, there's advice here, but I'll try and give you better advice than that. So, well, we're going to get to king and rook in just a second, Cloud, so you're going to get what you want. So again, the checkmate here is going to involve the king being on the side of the board. So again, we want to start off by taking space away from him. We're going to box him in with the queen and then bring in our king. You can do it by slowly boxing him in with the king and the queen, or you can box him in completely with the queen and then bring in the king at the end. It is faster to bring both pieces in at once, but it is the simpler technique to do it with just the queen, so I'm going to show you how that works first. So we're going to first bring the queen in here and take away a row. And now every time the king moves, we're going to move to a spot a knight's jump away from him, because that way we will be both taking away space from him on the row and on the diagonal while not being somewhere where he can capture us, right? You could try and take a lot of space away from the king with a move like queen d7, but if you get too close, like with the rook, it's not going to be good for the queen, okay? So we're going to retry that. Go here. All right. Now we're in this knight leap position away from the king. So we don't have a useful move with the queen here. Whoops. Sorry. No. 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 Stop clicking, David. All right. So we don't have a useful move with the queen right now because she's maximally restricting the king. So I'm going to spend one move on my king and then get back to putting my queen and knight sleep away from this king every time. So we're going to go to c6. Always trying to take away the closest rank. Now we're going to move again. Closer. 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 And eventually we'll get him on the side of the board. The moment your opponent goes to a side of the board, you're going to go to the rank covering him. So if he had gone to f8 last move, we would have gone to the 7th rank and got him stuck on the 8th rank. Now he's on the h file, so we're going to go to the g file and keep him stuck on the g file. And keep him stuck on the h file. Once he's stuck on the h file, it's high time to bring the king in. All right, and once your king reaches bishop 3, which is f3, c3, f6, or c6, you always have mate in 1, basically. So you can look for it here and hopefully find it. We're going to go for a smush mate where the queen attacks every square, including the one the king's on, while being defended by the king. Yeah. Any questions on king and queen versus king? Kind of assuming not, but I'll give you guys 3 seconds anyway to digest this. All right, on to the next basic mate. Drills, checkmates. Rook mate. All right, the rook mate, many of you may know how to do, but I think it's still super, super useful to look at this quickly, unless you're, like 2000 or something. But because the king and rook against king really fundamentally shows how Zugzwang operates. Because if black were allowed to pass, if black weren't forced to move, if the rules of chess didn't say you have to make a move, then king and rook against king would actually be a draw. You could never force the opponent's king onto the edge of the board and then checkmate them. Even if you had them on the edge of the board, you couldn't finish them off and checkmate them if they weren't forced to move by Zugzwang. All right, so we're going to have to use our king and our rook together here. And we're going to have to use Zugzwang. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take away half the board from my opponent. And then I'll bring the king in. All right, so I'm bringing my king near the opponent. And my idea is, sorry, it's not letting me. Okay. My idea was if the black king went 2 squares opposite me, then my king would be covering every square on the 4th rank for a moment, and I would take the 5th rank away with my rook. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, sorry, that's not what I meant to do there. We're looking for the moment where they have to step in front of your king, and then you can check them while you've got all 3 squares covered by your king. And that's how you can make progress forcing them back. All right, so the king moves back. So again, we're going to take away a row with the rook. Now, if our goal here is to put our king in front of the opponent's king and then check with the rook, what's the best next move for white here? What's the most precise move for white to advance towards checkmate, to push the black king towards the edge of the board here? Very good, CloudSat. So you're quite accurate, in fact, despite your concern about possibly being inefficient with this one. If we play king d4, we have to realize that black's going to move, so they're going to step away from d6. If we actually want the kings opposite each other, you're always going to stand 1 square to the side of the opponent, waiting for him to step in front of you, like that. If he didn't step in front of me, he would have had to step to c6. I would pursue him at d4. He could go to b6. I'd pursue him at c4. And eventually, he has to come step back in front of me, and then I take a row with the rook. as hopefully they'll show at some point here. So now where should we go? Everybody answering on their own, I hope. Before I show it, king e5. He avoids stepping onto e7, right? Because that would be check. But notice that when his king was on d7, white was not threatening anything. We were not threatening rook h7 because the king could come to c6. We were not threatening king d5 because then the king could move to e7 or c7. So in fact, with his king on d7, if black could simply pass there, there's no move for white to make any progress in that position. Nothing. All right, so the only thing that we're using here is Zugzwang. Black's being forced to move, and he has to worsen the position of his king, either by standing in front of our king or by standing closer to the edge. All right, so we pursue him, right, because we want to push him off the edge. Every time he steps in front of us, we check. Now, where do we want to go? Typically to d6. So that's what I'm going to continue doing. Although king e6 was equally good in that position, but we're going to pursue him, and now he's going to run away. All right, so when he does this, we're going to run to the far side. That's the simple way. Whenever the king gets near your rook, you go to the other side of your king from him. Now, do we want to play king f6? No. If we play king f6, the black king can just step away from us. So what we need to do here is we need to play a waiting move. Now, waiting moves... Oops, sorry. Waiting moves only make sense because there is such a thing as Zugzwang, right? I can play rook to a7, some move that seems neutral. That doesn't worsen my position anyway, and it forces black to play a move that worsens their position. If they stepped in front of the king, we would have had checkmate already, using the same exact system that we used to push them one row at a time towards the end of the board. Rook a8, checkmate. All right. So that's 3 basic checkmates down. And I will continue with all the basic checkmates another day. But for now, we're going to hop into another category. Okay, but next up's 2 bishop mate, bishop and knight. Has 2 different lessons to work on it. And then we've got queen versus bishop, queen versus knight, and so forth. And 2 knights versus pawn, which I don't know how to do. So that's one for me to practice with you all one of these days. All right, so let's go to endgame fundamentals. You were going to the opposition square rather than the Zugzwang square. That makes sense. And now you know. There you go.